Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking how one of India's most powerful emperors scored his greatest victory, and in doing so, actually doomed his entire empire. Yep, this is the story of a 27-year war that literally changed everything. So let's get right to it. In 1689, the Mughal emperor Aurangzeb captures and executes the Maratha king Sambhaji. You'd think the war was over, right? I mean, he had crushed his biggest enemy. But what if that single moment of triumph was actually the beginning of the end for him? How on earth did this massive victory lead directly to his empire's ruin?
You see, with Sambhaji gone, and the Maratha capital practically in his hands, Aurangzeb was absolutely certain the Deccan was his for the taking. But he made one fatal miscalculation. He completely underestimated the will of the Maratha people.
And the Maratha response? It was incredibly fast. We're talking just days after Sambhaji's death, his younger brother Rajaram was named the new Chhatrapati, their king. But the Mughal onslaught? Well, it was relentless. By November, after a brutal 8-month siege and a painful act of internal betrayal, the capital fell.
Now, here's a key detail. Aurangzeb's decision to spare Sambhaji's wife and young son, that wasn't mercy. Let's be clear, this was a man who killed his own brothers to get to the throne. Keeping them alive was a cold, calculated chess move. He saw them as political pawns he could use to control the Marathas down the road.
But here's the thing. The Marathas didn't just roll over and collapse like Aurangzeb expected. Not at all. Instead, they transformed. By abandoning their capital, they were getting ready for a totally new kind of war, one that would be fought entirely on their terms. In an absolutely daring escape, the new king, Rajaram, slipped right through the Mughal net. He traveled hundreds and hundreds of miles south to the formidable Jinji fort. And just like that, the entire game board changed. The Maratha command center wasn't in Maharashtra anymore. It was deep in southern India, which instantly turned a regional fight into a massive multi-front war.
And from Jinji, Rajaram unleashed this brilliant two-front strategy. So he told his best commanders, Santaji Ghorpade and Danashi Jadhav, to keep the Mughal forces completely tied down in the south. Meanwhile, other Maratha armies would just wreak havoc on Mughal supply lines and garrisons way back in Maharashtra. The goal? To stretch the massive, enormous Mughal army so thin that it would eventually just snap.
This two-front strategy completely flipped the script on the war. The Marathas weren't fighting big, conventional battles anymore. They shifted to a war of attrition, and they used what they had: incredible speed, the element of surprise, and an intimate knowledge of the terrain.
They perfected this traditional tactic known as Gnami Kava. Now, this wasn't just some random raiding. This was a sophisticated military doctrine. We're talking lightning-fast attacks that would cause maximum chaos and confusion, and then poof, the attackers would melt back into the landscape before the enemy even knew what hit them.
This created this incredible mismatch. On one side, you have the Mughals with their massive, slow-moving armies built for long sieges, all under a rigid, top-down command. And on the other, the Marathas, small, agile cavalry units led by independent commanders who could make decisions on the fly. It was, quite literally, a lumbering giant fighting a swarm of hornets.
You have to imagine the psychological toll this took on the Mughal army. Soldiers were living in this constant state of fear, never knowing when or where the next attack would come from. This elusive, almost ghost-like enemy was just systematically breaking their will to fight.
Just how effective was all this? Well, check this out. In 1695, the commander Santaji trapped a Mughal general named Kazim Khan. He cut off all supplies, starving the garrison to the point they were eating their own animals. Rather than face the humiliation of capture, Kazim Khan took his own life. The suicide of a top general, that sent absolute shockwaves through the Mughal high command.
For nearly a decade, the Mughals were stuck in this nightmare. But Aurangzeb, he was nothing if not persistent. In 1698, he finally captured the Jinji fort. He must have thought, at last, the war is over. But just as one leader was forced to retreat, another one, maybe even more formidable, was about to rise.
So Rajaram managed to escape Jinji, but just 2 years later he died from an illness. Now this could have been the final crushing blow for the Marathas, but instead his widow, a woman named Tarabai, stepped right into that power vacuum. She put her 4-year-old son on the throne and took the reins of the entire empire as the queen regent.
And here's the truly brilliant part. Tarabai turned Aurangzeb's own tactics right back against him. She totally understood the enemy's weaknesses, and began systematically bribing Mughal commanders, using the emperor's own playbook to dismantle his army from the inside out.
Okay, so let's flip the perspective for a minute. From Aurangzeb's side, this war had become an absolute quagmire. His obsession with conquering the Deccan was now eating up his final years, his vast treasury, and his entire legacy.
27 years. Just let that number sink in. The emperor who thought this little campaign would take maybe a year was now trapped in a war he couldn't win for an entire generation.
In the financial cost, it was staggering. After just 2 decades of constant fighting, the seemingly bottomless treasury of the Mughal Empire, one of the richest in the world, had been cut in half. All of it was just being poured into this unwinnable war.
By 1705, the emperor was in his late 80s, his health was failing, his army was completely demoralized, and his dream was in tatters. He finally gave the order to retreat to Delhi, but he was so weak he had to be carried in a palanquin. He would never see his capital city again. In his final days, the emperor's own letters, they're haunting. They reveal a man just consumed by regret. He wrote to his son, lamenting a wasted life and his failures as a ruler. The mighty conqueror of India was leaving the world as a stranger, filled with nothing but despair.
Aurangzeb died on Maharashtrian soil in 1707. His death marked the official end of this 27-year war, but its consequences would permanently redraw the map of power across the entire subcontinent.
And the final result was a complete 180, a total reversal of fortune. The Mughal Empire, drained of its wealth and prestige, began to crack and fracture, eventually becoming just a shadow of its former self. And the Marathas, they emerged from the ashes stronger than ever, expanding to become the subcontinent's dominant military and political force.
Now, understanding this history also means we have to look at how the story has been told over the years. The source material for this explainer actually clarifies a few key points, arguing that some popular stories, like a priest insulting Shivaji or Brahmins betraying Sambhaji, are actually later fabrications. Historical records, instead, point to betrayal by Sambhaji's own relatives, which suggests these other narratives were created much later to serve political agendas.
So in the end, this incredible 27-year saga of resistance, resilience, and reversal, it really leaves us with a timeless question. It forces us to ask ourselves what the true source of power really is: the unimaginable might of an emperor's army, or the unbreakable will of a people who are determined to be free?